Welcome to the Bringing Simplicity podcast, where launches come to life. I'm Judy, the co-host and co-owner of Bringing Simplicity. I've been helping businesses build their launch processes for hypergrowth by simplifying sales and hiring. I'm committed to your success through leveraging your people and systematizing for scale.
I'm Greta, co-host and co-owner of Bringing Simplicity. I've been helping businesses launch successfully for over a decade by multiplying their results through simple processes. I'm a data lover and technology lover who obsesses over every KPI. So grab your laptops and lattes and get ready to launch with simplicity.
Today, we are covering common mistake number 4 that will sabotage your launch. And that is not following through in a human way. So not following through to keep your leads engaged and fresh, right? Fresh on top of mind. So what do I mean by this? What do I mean by not following through in a human way? You're typically sabotaging your launch because of a couple of things. One, you're ghosting your leads, which we're going to talk about later, where I'm going to give you an example of how I was ghosted after I not only opted into an email list, but I opted into an event and was ghosted. Or by fire hosing them with too much information, which Greta has experienced and is going to go over that and give you that example later on. So how do you find the balance, right? I know a lot of times people are like, hey, I don't want to reach out right away, or I don't want to send an email within a certain amount of time. They kind of get in their head about, am I doing it too often? Am I not doing it enough? And so how do you find that balance? How do you keep them fresh and engaged? Again, you want to check in with them on a human way. So how do you check in with them on a human way? You typically, if you're curating your posts, your content, your newsletter, in a way that speaks to your audience, you're typically going to know how to respond to them in a personalized human way. So let's be honest, at first, you can actually personalize the emails individually. Most of you probably don't have, even if you have 100 people on your email list, or you may, when you're first starting out, you could definitely personalize them and get that feedback right away. And you want to get that feedback from them, right? You want to know what you're doing wrong. You want to know how you can help them, genuinely help them. But again, let's be honest, people are like, Judy, Greta, I don't have time to personalize them. I don't really have time to go through this information. But if we were to grab your phones right now and look at how much time you're spending on all your social media platforms, I guarantee you would have the time to respond to a few emails a day of personalizing emails to your audience. And it doesn't take that much to personalize them. So instead of scrolling on social media, as much time as you spend on social media, let's try to spend the equal amount of time, at least, on your business and on your followers or your list. So one other way is to understand their challenges. And Greta is really good about that. She's going to dig in a little deeper on how to use data too, to understand their challenges. But you're going to be able to see that based on how they engage, right? Like, which posts are they engaging with? Are they engaging with your posts where you're speaking about, how frustrated you are? Are they engaging on the financial ones that you bring up, or the data posts that you're doing, right? At first, you're probably going to kind of post several different things on your accounts, but also in your emails as well. And first, you kind of have to know what you aren't doing in order to know what you are doing. So a lot of it is, honestly, we're probably not going to say anything that you don't know or you haven't heard before. But the reality is that how our brains work is that you have to hear things and see things multiple times in multiple different ways before you actually take action on it, which is why following through is an important part of your launch. Whether you're doing it before or after your launch, it's just as important. So Greta's going to go into the things that we typically aren't willing to do. And I know that for me personally, these really hurt when she brought these to my attention. And so Greta, tell us, what are the things we're not willing to do?
Yeah. And I think if you haven't listened to the last episode on technology, go back and listen to that one too, because some of this all ties together, right? Like, are you accurately categorizing people and using tags in your systems so that you're able to do the things that we just talked about. So Judy mentioned that when you're super early on, personalizing messages to people when you have a smaller list is fairly straightforward, right? You literally could spend time looking at their IG and be like, hey, I saw that you just took a vacation to Florida. How was that? Right? Then it's like, whoa, she like sees me as a person. As we grow and scale, things to that level may not be completely realistic. However, if we're keeping track of what our freebies are that they're downloading from us, whether they registered for our event and attended or didn't attend, whether they're regularly opening and clicking through the buttons that we have in our emails, however much like information we can connect to them as a person and then personalize the emails going out. So, for example, we keep very clear-cut records of who registers and who attends and doesn't attend the master classes we run. That's a big part of our funnels. And so I am able to go back and say like, hey, we know that you really wanted to attend this before and you weren't able to. We wanted to like extend the invitation to you first before we even tell anybody else about when the next one's happening. All of a sudden it's like, wow, they see me. They know that I registered and I didn't come. And I wanted to come because I registered. I'm so thankful that now it's top of mind, right? So that's personalizing to that level. So this all ties into kind of bigger thought processes of like the lies that we tell ourselves, right? I was joking with Judy before. I feel like I just need to say like, you sleep on a bed of lies, right? Like there are things that we feed ourselves as entrepreneurs, partially as like, almost I think like a coping mechanism or a way of like making ourselves feel better about ourselves. But it's like, well, they don't want to hear from me. They haven't responded to my email, so clearly they don't want to hear from me. Or, you know, they haven't clicked on any links. Or I've asked them 3 times if they wanted to come to the masterclass and they've been in my funnel for 120 days and they've never come. So clearly they don't want to come. We tell all of these things to ourselves, probably to protect our ego. But the reality is people live lives. They're busy. And so even in personalizing, if you have somebody who's been in your funnel for a really long time and they've never engaged, say that. Hey, I noticed you joined back in January and you haven't been able to come to one of my master classes. Is that because the time doesn't work out for you or the topic just wasn't interesting? What? You know that I joined in January? You're asking why I didn't come? Like people respond to that stuff. It's
right.
amazing.
And you care, right? The human part, like you care too, right? Yeah.
Yep.
100%.
So all of those are lies. If they didn't want to hear from you, they would unsubscribe. So keep reaching out, keep providing value. And one thing that I'm not saying is don't just keep selling. Judy said follow up in a human way. Is there selling involved? Absolutely. But is it 100% straight selling? No, we're providing value and we're connecting it back to what we're selling. And so when we think about this, just remember, and I do kind of think this is shifting a little bit with how inundated we all are with information. But in general, from like a marketing standpoint, people have to consume your content 7 hours with 11 different touch points. So have you sent 11 emails? Are they actually seeing 11 of your posts? Because remember, the algorithm isn't showing all of your stuff and they need to be seeing it across 4 platforms. So what's an example of 4 platforms? That might be your Meta, your YouTube, your email, and a private Facebook community. They need to be hearing, consuming, and seeing it multiple times. Same way Judy said, we're not telling you a lot of things you haven't heard, but it doesn't sink in. You may not be motivated to take action immediately. We all live lives. So now we're going to walk through some hilarious stories of ways that we've seen the 7 hours, 11 touch points, 4 platforms go wrong. So first we're going to talk through the, like, they don't want to hear from us or they don't need to, right? Like they know all the information. I don't need to tell them when, what, when, you know, like all of these things. They registered. They should know what they registered for. So Judy, you registered. You should know what you registered for.
Yeah, I registered. So this was just last month, actually. So I registered for an in-person event. I was super excited because I'm like, oh, I've been following this person on social media. They're having an in-person event. I can't wait to meet them. I can't wait to go, right? I live in Arizona. So everybody knows, like, there's a bunch of in-person events. So I signed up. I was super excited. But after I signed up, I was ghosted. And I signed up for an in-person event. I got no text, no email, no responses at all. And so I had to text them. So I found a number and I was like, I'm going to text them and be like, hey, did my registration go through? Right? Because that's another thing. If you're not sending an email right away, some people might be registering twice, not on purpose, but because they didn't receive a hey or a thank you page of like, hey, you're in. We're so excited to have you. Here are the details. Add them to your calendar. And this is what to expect, right? And even if it's like they're just opting into a newsletter or anything like that, it's, hey, these are what you're going to be able to expect from me moving forward now that you've opted in, right? So I got nothing. And that did not make me feel very special. I like to feel special. I don't know about you guys, but I like to feel special. But like 2 weeks later after, which I registered for the event like a month in advance, I get a text from a group of people, not the person that I registered, like the speaker of the event. It definitely was his team saying like, we can't wait to have you. Is there anything that we can help you with? And it's like, I messaged you 2 weeks ago. Yes, there is. So I got that message, which again, that wasn't in a human way, right? If you're not responding to the message that I sent and saying, we're so sorry for the delayed response. Like, it's okay if you mess up. It's okay. We've had automations and funnels mess up all the time in our, like, things are going to happen, and that was to be expected. That's what I assumed happened. Say, I also like to throw in there, like, we've received a ton of, interest and sorry that we didn't get back to you, or sorry that technology failed us. Like, even saying things like that is okay to say, being transparent, but they didn't acknowledge my message at all. It was just like, hey, we're so glad, like, awesome. Well, like, now I'm not glad to see you because you didn't talk to me, right? In a human way. So I didn't go. And after the event, they messaged me and was like, hey, sent that, like, how else can we support you? Which is great. It was a good message that they sent after. But then I didn't respond to that. So I ended up ghosting them, right? Like, I didn't go to the event. I didn't respond. And then they responded back with another person's name. And they were like, Taylor, ? And then sent the same message. But I clearly registered with my name. So please don't go back and be like, do we have the name wrong? Like, no, I entered the information. Like, It's me. I entered my name. My name is also in my email tied to my phone number. And I even messaged you. So they got it all wrong. Obviously, messaging somebody not their name, that's not in your system afterwards, just because they don't respond, is not a human way to do it either. And they tried to make it a human way. They did a group message, right? Which meant they were using somebody's phone to do a group message. They weren't doing it from Go High Level, which we use often, or anything like that. They weren't doing it from Keep, any of those systems. They were actually using their own. So that made it even worse, knowing that, moving on, that these were actual humans and not technology that was doing this. So that's one of my stories of where I was ghosted. And then I ended up ghosting them because they didn't follow up in a human way, right? That was
you reciprocated the same level of care, right? Like, it's like, if
right.
you take 2 weeks to get back to me, I'm not going to rush to get back to you.
Right. Yeah, exactly. It's human nature to respond in a way that others are treating you sometimes, especially when you're busy. Like, everyone's busy, like, whether you're an entrepreneur or not, like, you're a mom, you're a parent, like, whatever, you've got things going on and your brain is not focused on what you had just done. And honestly, you just want to feel special sometimes. And that doesn't make me, like, I can get upset if I like book a nail appointment, I don't get a message right away.
You do. You don't, you like won't go back to that place.
Yeah. I'm like, excuse me. I didn't get can't wait to see you, Judy message. No, thank you.
Place that does. So you mentioned on treating people and recognizing their experience as a mom or a wife or an entrepreneur, like recognizing that we all exist in this world that isn't completely about you and what you're selling. So it's a lie that you're telling yourself that people don't want to hear from you, but you can't lie to yourself and tell yourself that you're the person's number one priority. Okay. You're probably pretty low down on their priority list, unless they're in a lot of pain, and like, that might not be an ideal client anyways. So my experience is actually fairly opposite of Judy's. These people failed to see me as a human being in terms of the fact that they wouldn't necessarily become my number one priority just because I made a purchase. So I bought a low ticket offer from somebody who I also had been following for quite a while. Like the content that they put out on Instagram is really good. I've gotten some great golden nuggets that like I've used to build up some of my own strategies. So I'm like, okay, fine. I will spend, I think it was 27, but I did buy an upsell. So it ended up being 47 or something to that effect. I'm not closeted. Let's be honest.
You're not in the, no, everybody knows.
I buy like $27 courses nonstop. Judy has to like, now I have like actions I have to complete before I'm allowed to buy another, just because I buy so many. Well, I got the freebie. It was like right at the end of my workday. I decided to buy it, opened it, completely not what I was expecting from this person. Fairly low quality, $27. And like I said, I bought a lot of $27 offers. So I've seen the full spectrum of like, whoa, that person probably should have charged like $2,000 for that, to like, it's like a $7 one. This one fell on like I think this is a freebie. I probably paid $7 for it. But I mean, I didn't put a ton of thought. I was like, okay, maybe I'm not like absorbing it enough. It's the end of the day. The kids had gotten off the bus. I had to like transition from like work Greta to mom Greta, right? So make that transition. And I tend to put my phone away when the kids are home. I hear my phone dinging quite a bit. And I'm like, what is going on? Pick up my phone. I had gotten like 6 text messages from this person, almost as if it was like days had passed. Like, how's it going? Have you been able to implement any of the strategies? It's been like 12 minutes. No, I haven't implemented any of your strategies. No.
Yeah, thumbs down.
So still like ignore the messages. I'm like, okay, well, at least I know why my phone is dinging. It's not my husband telling me to put the water on for supper. Like he'll be home soon, whatever. I'm like, okay, I'm going to like silence my phone and walk away. Doing my doom scrolling at night. And I get a message at midnight Eastern time that says, hey, Greta, so sorry. Like we haven't been able to like find a way to make this work up to this point. Where do we go from here? I'm like, how do we go from here? I have to at 4 p.m. and it's midnight my time. I'm so confused. And I literally replied back, it's midnight. And the person replied back, is that late?
So that's probably, again, that could be is that a bot that they set up improperly to message you? But at the same time, like, why are you not testing? You should be testing these things on that's another way you're sabotaging your launch, which was, back to the last episode of technology, not testing your technology to make sure it's working on your end.
And like auditing, because like you're obviously trying to make an upsell. Like, so now how many people bought into your initial low ticket offer that then converted to a higher ticket offer? Like, there's no way people went through what I went through and bought the more expensive thing.
No, definitely not. If we look at the data, that's definitely not it.
So do people want to hear from you? Absolutely. Do they want to hear from you 12 times in the span of however many hours that is, from 4 p.m. till midnight? No, they probably also don't want to hear from you past like 8 p.m. their time.
Right.
So figure out how to set stuff to their time zone.
And if you don't know, again, in a human way, these are people like, we like to think of these people as like our friends and all of these things, but like even our friends and our family, we typically don't want 8 messages from in the same day. I'm going to be honest, like chill. So just going back and evaluating those things and thinking like, would I want this? And I know it goes back to like, treat everyone how you want to be treated, but a lot of it is treat everyone how they want to be treated. And so you have to know your audience in order to personalize things in a human way. So how do you do this? How do you avoid sabotaging, right? Is you start building that trust. Like a lot of people, if you're into launches, if you're into funnels, if you're into sales, a lot of people do this. Hormozy does it, Gary Vee, Russell Brunson, like they all are adding value and not actually quote unquote selling. And they're giving a bunch of like, their courses are online for free, a lot of them, right? Like a lot of keynotes are online for free that they've been paid thousands of dollars to go speak at are free for you. So, and they know what you want. You're consuming it because they know what their audience's needs, wants, and desires are. So some ways to do that is you can do a poll, like do a poll on social media. or send an email asking them, what is it that you want more of? Do you want more of this type of content? Do you want to know how to get more email subscribers? Do you want to get more conversions, right? For us, like, do you want to learn more about the technology behind funnels, or do you want to learn more about how to really have a great show rate for your webinar, your masterclass that you have, right? And then just thanking them too, like thanking them and appreciating them. Like, we had an abandoned lead who, like Greta said at the beginning, they didn't attend anything. They weren't responding. And all we did was send out a newsletter email, and they responded and was like, I'm going to sign up for the next one.
It wasn't
right?
even the newsletter didn't even have anything to do with it. It was just high value content that is contained in the program. So we said that.
So how do you avoid the two extremes? What I experienced, being ghosted, completely ghosted, and not making me feel special, to Greta, like they're trying to put her on a platter and then bring her down. Like within like a matter of like hours.
I wasn't avoiding you.
Right? Fire hose, and now nothing. So how do you avoid this? Is definitely one is you're adding value, you're building that trust, right? That, like, producing content, making connections that build that trust. And we've seen it all done before. Again, this is nothing that you haven't heard before. Hormozy talks about it, Gary Vee talks about it, Russell Brunson talks about it, right? Like, everybody is building trust. There's tons, and they do that by providing free content, free communities, free opt-ins, their newsletter. They're putting their keynotes out on their YouTube channels, right? That people pay thousands of dollars for them to go, by the way, and speak at those conferences. They're paying them thousands of dollars, but they get the keynote to be able to still post on YouTube for their audience, because they want you to have that same education. Like Hormozy says, like, make business education accessible for everyone. That's his goal, right? That's his mission. And I remember that because he's built that trust, even though the only thing I bought from him is like a book, a couple of books. So you can start, and Greta's going to dig into this a little more, is you start by really becoming familiar with your audience's needs, wants, and desires, right? So you do that, and Greta's going to tell us a little bit more about how you can pull the needs, wants, and desires through data and the content that you're posting.
Yeah, absolutely. So one thing is there's two types of data. There's qualitative and quantitative. So there's straight numbers data. So that's like your opens, your clicks, those type of things. But there's also looking at trends. And Judy sort of alluded to this before. What of your reels are getting the most traction? How many people are DMing specific types of questions? Are there patterns around things that are hitting a nerve or things that are causing people to think about things? Are you getting a higher open rate on certain email headlines? And so this won't happen overnight. You're not going to know these trends right away, but paying attention to what is being answered will help you to then craft what it is that you're talking about next. So for example, we have a client who we write biweekly newsletters for, and I keep a pulse on what are the things that people are organically interacting with, so that when I tell our copywriter what the next newsletter should be about, I pull from, hey, we've gotten a lot of questions about this lately, which was partially because we posted a reel on that, but that reel did well. It went far. It got a lot of traction, comments, text messages, all of the things that we were then engaging with conversations. Tell me more about that. What are you struggling with? So then we ultimately create this newsletter that solves the problem. We gave away the information for free. We literally took what we provide to our paid people. I mean, we had to distill it down a little bit, but ultimately all of the information is there. And we said that in the email. We said, hey, this is usually something that's only accessible to people who are in our paid mastermind. However, we've been getting a ton of questions, and honestly, half of why your people come to the mastermind is because they need help with accountability and getting it done. So we're happy to give you the information, but if you're struggling with the follow through, like, let's talk. The funny thing is I didn't even put that in the email. Our call to action had nothing to do with the program. I just alluded to the fact that it was information that is found in the program. And we have people who then have reached out to say, like, I'm going to join, right? Because it's super high value. People are tired. And I mean, I think we could bring up this example too. Like, Judy and I register for a lot a lot of free events. We attend a ton of free trainings. I mean, I aim to do one a week. If I come to your masterclass and I get this much actual usable content, I'm pissed. People are tired of it. They do not want to come to your sales show. Can you sell during your masterclass? Absolutely. But you better be giving me tangible, actionable items because I'm not paying you for knowledge. I can get that for free from ChatGPT. I'm paying you to hold me accountable and for the way that you implement things.
Yeah.
So when we think about our newsletters, when we think about that, what are things that people are asking? And you know what? If your account is dead and nobody is interacting and you're like, but Greta, I don't know what people want. Well, search hashtags that have to deal with your industry. Because if they're not interacting with your stuff, I guarantee they're interacting with somebody else's. And you still, if that's your target audience, you can still speak to those people based on what they're following in terms of other people.
But let's talk about also that if you don't know, Instagram actually tells you now. Like these are trending posts. These are trending topics for your area of expertise, for your audience. So if you don't know, again, like Greta said, like there's a lot of stuff out there that's already done for you. But what is holding you back from following through? A lot of it is that you're probably not willing to do, again, what we're asking you to do, which is what, again, like what a lot of our clients come to us for. Like, it's not that they don't want to put on a webinar. They don't want to not add value to their clients. They're just getting stuck. So how do you get unstuck? Is you bring simplicity to your launch for several different ways, right? So you bring simplicity by doing the things that we talked about. So to recap, again, before we move on to how you bring simplicity is, Greta, you mentioned something earlier that I want to touch base on and make sure that everybody writes this down, is that like you keep messaging them, you keep emailing them until they tell you to stop, until they say no. So you're going for no. And if you haven't read that book, Go for No by Richard Fenton. It was one of the first books that I read when I got into business and just started learning years ago. It's a quick read. You can read it in one day. We'll drop the link in the show notes so that way you guys can grab it, but you can listen to it in like, I mean, not even a full day if you're doing.
I was just going to say, it's like a sit down and read in one sitting for sure.
Yeah. So how to bring simplicity to your next launch, your funnel, to not sabotage the follow through process with your leads, is we talked about test it, right? Like if you have it, test it. If you built things, test your bot, test that it's going through, test little things such as that it's saying like, hey, Greta, instead of saying like, hey, you. That's, that's a bit of personalization, right? When someone says like, hey there, I'm like, hey, I put my name in, like you should use it, right? Test your funnel, test your text, all of it, right? Test your mini chats. I've seen a lot of mini chats mess up as well. We always test that together. Poll your audience, easily do a poll. Or like we said, look at trending ones that are going on. Instagram's going to tell you, like Greta said, poll, like, is it your headline? Like, what is it that's engaging people in? And then Greta, what are other ways that they can bring simplicity like today to their launch?
Yeah, for sure. Utilize your team. So Judy talked about how in the one message, hey, it wasn't the speaker who was, sending that message. It was a group message that was her team. It's also okay for you to have your team pretend to be you.
Mm-hmm.
Just saying. So utilize your team, train them. What are some of your commonly used phrases? What's some common resources that they can offer to questions that are asked that is you speaking, right? Like, hey, I hear that you say you're struggling with X, Y, and Z. I have this awesome resource that will help solve that. And then follow up in 3 to 5 days. Hey, did you get a chance to watch that? Or, hey, what was your biggest takeaway? Actually, we always assume they've watched it. We let them tell us they haven't. But hey, what was your biggest takeaway from insert free resource? And follow up, not because of like people aren't interested in your stuff. I could be super interested in consuming your free resource, but I also have so many other things happening in life. And sometimes I like being reminded that I really wanted to watch that free webinar that you sent my way. Like, I have a list of things that I want to get through. So if you remind me, you just kind of get pushed to the top. So figure out easy ways with automation. I don't want to go too much back to the tech, but if you're using things like ManyChat, build in your follow-ups into your ManyChat. Set it so that 7 days later as it checks back in with somebody to see how things are going. Did they have any further questions? And the more you can think of ways to ask open-ended questions, even if you've engaged in a conversation, it still will feel natural. It would still feel natural for me to check in 7 days and be like, hey, how are things going?
Exactly. Supernatural. And that's where it comes into like, talk to them how you would want to be spoken to is another thing. And so having those touch points, having that team, I think a lot of people, it's a scary thing. That's one of the things that we recommend. A lot of our business owners that we work with who want to work with us and they want to scale their business, or like, I've been struggling at doing 5K a month and I want to get to 50K a month. And like, it's scary being like, hey, you got to hire a team to do this, right? But if you're sticking with, we're going to treat everybody like, if that's one of your values and that's what you hone in with your team's going to be able to respond to them in a human way if you're giving them the tools to be able to do so. So don't be afraid to do that, and test it and track it and write it, and don't be scared. Don't be fearful to put out something that's meaningful as well. I think a lot of times people think, like you said, Greta, like people don't want to hear this and they don't want to, but until you post it, you don't know. Yeah. You're making a decision for your audience, but you need to let your audience
make that decision. Agree.
So give them, they want the power, but if you don't give them the option to, and you're not sending them emails, you're not posting things for them to like, or for them to respond to, or for them to watch, then how are you going to know? And at the end of the day, we're usually, most of us, especially the clients that we work with, are in business to make an impact. And the way you do that is by valuing them. And we did a post a while ago, by the time it gets posted, where it's like, you're going to attract the wrong audience by knowing the most, but you're going to attract the right audience by caring the most. And how you show you care is by continually showing up and adding value and adding content and being consistent. Like if you're that friend that all of a sudden like stops showing up to things and stops coming to the parties that they're invited to, like, are you going to be friends with them for much longer? Probably not. You're probably like going to stop inviting them at some point in time, right? So you got to stay top of mind and give them like a little virtual hug. Like the content is like a little virtual hug.
Yeah, for sure. I do feel like I have to circle back because we talked about bringing simplicity. And I know it's so easy to be like, you just said bringing simplicity and then listed like 6 things. We would love for you to do all 6, but even if you could do one of those 6 better, then you will see returns on investment. So if that's re-engaging in a more personalized way by figuring out how to tag, whatever from all of that list, any nugget that you got today, if you can just make like that one change, that 1% shift, is what we're looking for. So simplicity is going to come from just doing what you can right now.
Exactly. Do what you can, do what you're capable of. I mean, there are parts of business that you're not going to enjoy. There's definitely things that I don't enjoy, which is why Greta's my business partner. Because she gets to do all the things and loves doing all the things that I don't enjoy. But you also, like Greta said, don't overwhelm yourself, because you want to be able to wake up and feel good about going in and working on your business each and every day. And by segmenting it out to be like, hey, I'm going to, which is what we work a lot with our clients and even people who do mentorship with us, is we help break that down into smaller nuggets to be like, oh yeah, like that's a win. Like you didn't realize that was a win, but it is a win.
Can you believe that our next episode will be the 5th and final most common mistake, which means that if you have listened from start to finish, you were making slow tweaks along with us, and then you could even go back and re-listen because you might hear something different. But next week, you'll get the last piece, which is support, which we've alluded to in every single one.
Well, we're not going to share anymore because we could talk about that one forever. So we'll try to make it short and sweet. Oh, okay. I'm lying. I'm lying, but we will make it simple. It may not be short and sweet, but it will be simple.
That's a wrap on today's episode. I hope this gave you some clarity and, more importantly, the confidence to simplify and scale your business without adding to your plate. Before you go, I have a quick favor to ask. Leave a quick review and get a coffee on us. Reviews help more business owners like you find the podcast. and we love reaching them. As a thank you, each week we'll randomly pick a reviewer to win a coffee on us. Starbucks or Dunkin', you pick. Just leave a review, screenshot it, and send it to us on IG at Bringing Simplicity to enter. And if you could use more simplicity in your biz, be sure to hit subscribe so you never miss an episode. That's it for today. Thanks for hanging out with us. Talk to you next week.